YouTube, what's up? Back again for another daily fishing video here on Andrew Upshaw Fishing. You know, just finished up the James River today. Didn't have really the day I wanted. Had 8 pounds, a little over 8 pounds. I don't know what it was. I only had 3 though. I lost way too many fish today. I mean, that's the moral of the story today. I lost some big ones. And that, you know, thing is, you got to just buck up and just move on to the next one. I'm still going to be around the top 10 in points, so can't really complain there. I think I ended up in 83rd place. I dropped about 40 places, and definitely I weighed in at 12-incher today. I mean, that's a tiny fish. I mean, it weighed like 3/4 of a pound, but at the time, I was very thrilled to have it because I knew how many places that 3/4 of a pound was actually going to move me up, so it's huge. But today's fishing tip is actually going to be centered around frogs, but not specifically just frogs, but a few modifications you can make to help you target specific things. So we're going to jump right into this, but yet, real quick, if you haven't yet, go ahead and hit that sub button in the bottom right-hand corner and comment below what is your favorite frog. I don't care what it is. Drop it below. I'd love to know. Maybe drop a color too, because we all have our favorite colors. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So let's jump right into this video, and I hope y'all enjoy the rest of it. Alright guys, today's fishing tip is going to be centered around some modifications I make to my frogs when I'm out there on the water for particular situations. So, let's say for instance, you're fishing at like Gunnersville, and you're fishing there in the fall, and you're fishing this matted hydrilla, and you've got the slime. Everybody calls it cheese, and it's just this yellow slime on top of the water. You know, there's a couple things that I do to my frog to make them more effective. So, I typically, in that situation, I'm going to throw a sexy frog. It's just a KVD sexy frog. This is your walking style frog. So a couple modifications I'm going to make is I'm going to trim the legs really short. I'll actually trim them about this short, even shorter than what they are currently on this frog. This leg has actually been trimmed, and I'll explain a little bit about why I trimmed this one. But in the case of fishing a mat, and I'm talking a matted hydrilla, I'm going to trim those legs, because the thing is you don't want something where they can just come up there and grab the legs of it. You want something that when they come up there and even touch it, they're getting the hooks. And that's a big important aspect of this. The second modification I make for fishing mats is I'll actually add a little weight. You know, you can do that in 2 different ways. You can actually tie lead core weight to the hooks. And surprisingly enough, I learned a portion of this trick from Cody Meyer. What he does is he'll actually tie his double hook together using braid, and then he'll super glue it. Well, what I've actually learned to do is I'll get a little bit of lead core weight. It's actually like a rope type weight, and I'll wrap it around there a bunch of different times, and I'll add just enough weight to where the frog will sink down a little bit in the water. I don't want it to completely sink like really fast, but I want it to be heavy. What this is going to do is when you get in a situation where the mat is really thick, it's actually going to sink that frog down in the mat, so with easier access to get to the bass. That's an extremely important tip. So if you're fishing those mats, you want to sink that frog down into the mat a little bit. I'm not saying waking the dog or nothing like that, and some of you are going to understand what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about it actually, the weight of the frog will actually sit down in the mat a little bit more, and those fish can access it and they eat it better. So that's tip number 1. Actually, that's like 2 tips in one. The second modification I'll make to my sexy frog is when I'm fishing open water. So 9 times out of 10, if I'm fishing open water, I'm probably going to use a popping perch because I just like the popping action. But in certain situations, when I'm skipping the sexy frog around cover, so like laydowns, overhanging bushes, undercut banks, those kind of things, I'm going to make one specific modification. Let's see if I can find my scissors. Oh, here they are. So one thing will make the sexy frog walk easier, and that's what you're wanting to do. You skip it way back up in there, and you're going to walk it out. One thing that's going to make it walk easier is I always shorten the legs a little bit. As you can tell, the legs are already kind of short. But what I'll actually do is I'll trim one side just a bit shorter than the other side. As you can tell, this one's longer than this one. What that does is it creates enough of a disturbance on one side that when you twitch it, it's always going to walk. It's going to make the bait walk even harder in the water. And that is a huge important aspect of when you're walking that frog around that shallow stuff, like whether it's, you know, grass or overhanging bushes, whatever it may be, that will actually help you walk that frog significantly better. I promise you guys, if you try it, you're going to be super surprised how well it works for you. So those are a couple instances where I use the sexy frog, and really a couple of the tips that I like to use with it. Now, on the poppin' perch, the poppin' perch is a unique animal in itself. You know, when Castledine helped design this thing, or actually I think he did design it. I mean, he even made the colors for the poppin' perch. You know, there's a couple things that I actually do to my poppin' perch as well. And it'll actually surprise you. So I actually think that there's some certain times, and it's a rarity, but there's certain times that the legs on this are overwhelming. And I actually think that it kind of will spook the fish a little bit, because it is a big profile. When you talk about what they're actually seeing, they're seeing the silhouette of this, so it looks like a big bluegill. Well, in certain places that I fish all over the country, that might be too big of a profile, or maybe not natural enough. So what I'll actually do is I'll get this poppin' perch, and I'll take about 4 strands off this side, and I'll take the 4 strands off this side, okay? And then I will actually trim the middle strands completely off, just like so, okay? So I've trimmed the middle strands. So now, what does that look like? That looks like a frog, right? So once I do that, I'm like, okay, I've got my skirt trimmed on there. I'll do the exact same thing. So, but I want to angle it though. I don't want to do it straight across. I want to angle it just like this thing is. So I'm going to do one side shorter, and I'm going to do, let's see if I do this right. And I'm going to do the other side just a bit longer. Just like so. So I know this looks super goofy. I promise, guys, I know this looks like so goofy. But I have busted their face in with it rigged just like this. This is a good way to make your profile a bit smaller, just like the regular frog. So the difference is, so some of you are going to say, well, I just throw a poppin' frog, like a snag proof, or not a snag proof, a Spro poppin' frog, like this one right here. So the difference is, and I'm going to show you, when I push the poppin', or the Spro frog down, I want you to look at the gap of the hooks, okay? I want to say these are only like 3/0 hooks on here. So that is the gap of the hook. So when I peg that fish, I set the hook on the Spro frog, that's all the gap I get. But when I press the poppin' perch down, I want you to look at the size of the gaff on that, okay? And that's the difference. I mean, there's almost no leverage here. You're going to hear a lot of pros talk about, they actually replace the hook a lot of times in the poppin' frog, the Spro poppin' frog, because, I mean, let's face it, the hook's not quite big enough. You will lose some fish on it. But that's why I turn to the poppin' perch. I can modify it and make it look almost identical by just how I trim the legs. So you can actually get out of your own mind and trim it and do a lot of really cool things with it. Now, I'm just going to be the first to tell you, guys, I actually, 9 times out of 10, I leave the poppin' perch just the way it comes. I mean, I think it works. I've witnessed how good it works. The hookup ratio on the poppin' perch is phenomenal. And I think that's one important aspect of it. It uses a big gaff hook. They don't bend, they don't leak, and they have a good drain in the back just in case you do get some water in there. But as far as setup goes, I keep my setup literally the same as my swim jig, my heavy duty swim jig. I just use a 7.2 heavy action rod. I don't like an overwhelming rod as far as like lengthwise. That's too specialty. That's more like pads or mats or something like that. But the problem is we're not all facing that situation. Most of the time, we're walking a frog, we're casting a frog just in kind of scattered vegetation, around spawners, whatever it may be. 7.2 heavy action. I just use the Mark Rose jig worm rod. I use it for a lot of different things. That's one of my most versatile rods. So if you only get to buy 1 or 2 rods, and maybe that's the only budget you have, the jig worm rod's a really good rod because I use it for my swim jigs. I use it for swim baits. I use it for frogs. I use it for big worms. I use it for a lot of different things. It's a good rod. I use it for pitching around lily pads, and one of the things I did this week. So definitely a good rod. I use a 7.5 to 1 gear ratio reel. I mean, is an 8 better? I don't know. It's all about whatever you really like. I use a custom. It's just the reel I'm confident in with a frog. It's a really heavy duty reel. It works really well. And line, I keep it basically the exact same. I use 50-pound Strike King tour grade braided line. I don't like going up to 65 unless I'm just in that one situation where I'm frogging mats and I'm catching giants. Then I'll go to like 65, but 50 gets the job done like 99% of the time. I can skip the frog easily. I can do anything and everything I need to do with it. But guys, those are a couple of my frog mods. I hope y'all really enjoy it. I hope y'all learn something from this, because these are a couple things that it's taken me a few years to learn. And I'm not saying that I even came up with them. It took me years to learn these things. So hopefully this will shorten the learning curve for you and help you the next time you're trying to figure out how to modify your frog to catch more bass. Guys, real quick though, if y'all haven't subbed yet, go ahead and hit that sub button. Comment below. I already told you what to comment below. Comment below what's your favorite frog and what's your favorite color of your frog. Love to see what y'all say. Guys, I hope y'all enjoy this video. Be sure to stay tuned for next week. It's tomorrow's video. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video. I hope y'all enjoy it, guys. We'll see ya.